is there a crime where a black person is the perpetrator and a black person is the victim? Yes. Now, is it important as black people, as a community, that we minimize and mitigate that where it happens? Yes.
Right.
However, there's a reason why specific language and phraseology is used when addressing black people, actions that black people do or engage in.
If you're in Africa, there are crime, probably as much as it is in Europe, with blacks. But you will not hear on the news or TV saying black on black, because you're in your country. You're in a native of, Africa, Caribbean, or whatever, where there's population, majority is black. They're not going to say black on black.
How often is there a forum, or is there something about discussing white on white crime? Never, right? Because so it's even problematic that we're sitting here and we're going, oh, let's talk about black on black crime.
All right, so welcome to, I'm calling this Powerful Voices. So welcome to Powerful Voices. I'm your host, Charly Buxx. For those who've been on the call before, you can find the past content on YouTube. And also I've just started a podcast, so you can also find it on all your favorite podcast channels, Spotify, and whatever podcast channel you normally use. Before we get into it, the rules are very simple, nothing fancy. Again, please turn on your camera if you're going to talk, or have a profile picture displayed so we can see your face. We're all adults here, so there's no language restriction. You can be as colorful as you need to be. We just ask that you keep it respectful. We want to hear everybody's point, so please don't shout over or talk over anybody. If you don't agree with somebody's point, then state yours, and we keep it moving. Very simple. So let's do this. So we're looking at a few issues that's plaguing that's affecting us in the black community. So I know we've been talking about a protest, we're talking about Black Lives Matter, and each time different people are trying to move the conversation towards colorism, black on black crime, tribalism, and all these other things, all these other issues that we're dealing with. Is it time to address these issues yet? Because in the initial stages we're saying, no, we're not talking about these things. We're talking about police brutality, we're talking about systemic racism. So is it time to now start to talk about some of these issues? So at the same time as we're talking about systemic racism and kind of, the police brutality, disproportionate amount of police brutality against, against black people, is it the same time to now bring up things like black on black crime?
I think it's important as a community to address community issues. I don't think that it's a good employment of resources to address them on the same sort of basis. So
right.
An issue of, say, police brutality or institutional or systemic racism is a specific issue that collectively, regardless of your socioeconomic status as a black person, you have an experience of. So I think, yes, we should discuss, colorism. How do we address colorism? We should discuss violence amongst all black communities. But I think that they're sort of separate in the sense that the issue that you've raised is an issue about community and how do we organize a community. So the question for us is, if we can organize a community, then we will have a stronger base to protect ourselves from white supremacy, but it doesn't solve the issue of white supremacy or systemic racism, if that's a better sort of phrase for people.
So how do we tackle these things in parallel? Do we wait till we've resolved one, or can these things, can it happen, can the discussion happen in parallel? Like, can we still have this conversation at the same time, basically?
So I think the conversation is a continuum, only because the issues that we're discussing, whether it's colorism or violence within or just a group, they're not unique to black people. Because you find, for example, violent crime amongst socially deprived economic classes across all socioeconomic sectors. So, for example, you will see a high rate of violent crime in an economically deprived area. But if you go to a black sort of a middle class area, for example, you're not going to see the same level of violence or crime.
Right.
So it's important to contextualize it because these issues exist in every community. What is unique to sort of black people is the systemic form of racism that we experience from outside the community based on the system. So every community, and this is not an All Lives Matter, by the way, but every community has to deal with their community issues and on an ongoing basis. So that should be a continuum. I think one of the things that we shouldn't fall victim to is that when there's a discussion around police brutality or systemic injustice, people say, oh, what about black on black crime? Or people say stuff like black people don't care about themselves, or black people are the worst racists. So we shouldn't fall into that trap.
Anderson, yeah. The thing is, I understand that, talking about black on black crime while we are being killed by white people or the police is difficult, but it's a conversation that we must have. Why? Because black on black crime still exists right now. As white people are killing us, people, for example, in Chicago, are still shooting each other, knowing what's happening. Which means if we don't press on that issue, when is it that we can literally sit down there and speak and find solutions amongst ourselves? We need to address it. This is a hot climate. Everyone needs to speak about what's really real. And what's really real is that on both sides, white people are killing us, but guess what? Black people are killing black people as well.
Yeah, at least, yeah, if, we saw out the white people killing us, right? Maybe, what I'm saying, the black people educate themselves from that, thinking, hey, listen, this side have stopped killing us, so I think, we should stop killing, the way it is here, the black on black crime thing here is deep. It goes back to history, divide and conquer. They use materials to, So, on that aspect, boy, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know.
So, yes, definitely black on black attacks and, killing each other does exist. We see it all around us. But I just truly believe, I don't think that's a fault of our own. I just think it's something that is been embedded in us or infiltrated or, for years. And, like the other guy said, it's all about divide and conquer. But that's completely a different subject or different situation with the police crime. It's just like, when you have siblings, they can fight each other. But when an outsider jump in, it's a completely different thing, So we should, like, in our community, deal with our own, situation with that. And then the police or the systemic racism is completely different kettle of fish. That needs to be dealt with separately.
So let me ask you a question. So on the issue, I think, again, that was a similar question I asked to Fimba. On previous calls, we'd said, people have said, the term black on black crime is a myth, right? Like black on black crime does not exist. So are we saying we agree with the term black on black crime and this is an issue we have to deal with in our community?
No, I don't like labeling this black on black thing because white people kill each other, so does Chinese, just an Indian. It's just a way of the media or the government just trying to make it look as worse than everything else. If a white person, America's notorious known for all these psycho killers. When they kill each other or they kill another white woman, do they put in the media, or white man just killed a white woman? They don't do that. Or Chinese man just killed another Chinese man, Right. So I think the term, I just think that's just focused. They're just trying to, it's all about separating and making us look as, worse. Yes, crime do happen, in cities, you know, but I don't think the percentage is as bad as, you know, white or white. Yeah, making that to be.
I understand that the white media is definitely taking advantage of what's happening within the black communities. And in terms of numbers, you know, they are criminals. They're definitely winning that battle. I get that. However, if we don't address that issue now, while kids are killing each other, for example, in Chicago, and apparently it's at the rate of what was happening in the real war, as in Iraq, for example. Black kids are dying every single weekend. It's happening for real. White media is saying to us that we're killing each other and we're part of the problem, because we are part of the problem as well. She mentioned earlier on that there's it's a survival of the fittest. We get that, but there's different ways you can deal with survival. You know, by educating yourself, by getting to a level where you've got no choice but to mature yourself. And education starts at home, which means parents. Where are the parents dealing with those kids that are being killed because they want to sell drugs or whatever it is that they're doing out there?
Right.
The truth of the matter is that we still haven't found a solution within ourselves, within our own communities, to speak to our own kids and say to our kids, you're killing your own brothers. And that's where the problem is. And the only problem that we have with ourselves at the moment is that white people take advantage by exposing us and say, look at you lot, what are you doing? And it's a fact. We're not perfect.
So you agree with the narrative?
Not necessarily all the way. All I'm saying is it is a problem.
So it's about language, isn't it, really? And so you have to, it's multifaceted and you have to unpack it. And we could do a whole show just on language. So I'll try and make it as simplified as possible. But it's about language. So is there a crime where a black person is the perpetrator and a black person is the victim? Yes. Now, is it important as black people, as a community, that we minimize and mitigate that where it happens? Yes. Right. However, there's a reason why specific language and phraseology is used when addressing black people, actions that black people do or engage in. As we said earlier at the very beginning, crime exists across communities and across groups. It's not unique to black people. From a media narrative or media perspective, the ruling system, they take human behavior that black people exhibit and they pathologize it, trying to make it a uniquely black criminal experience. So it's very important that even if we want to address behaviors within black communities that we think are problematic, we use the correct language. Because of course, I agree with Anderson. It's important that as black people, we take better care of our young children.
So you think it's a question of semantics?
No, I think it's more than semantics. I think so because the language informs how you view. Okay. And so, for example, nobody is saying to sort of, if you pick a random group, to Asian people, you need to sort out the high issues in your community related to whatever specific issues Asians experience before you get justice in the system. Nobody says that to those communities, but because of the way, and I think it's very important to also look at the history, because if you look at the way Western systemic racist societies have pathologized black behavior, if you go and look at the movie called The Birth of a Nation, right, where black people are depicted as animals and criminals, so that normal black behavior is criminalized. So you have to go into the detail and say, actually, no, let's overcome systemic racism. The community issues will always exist and we always have to fight it. It's not one or the other, but they're separate. Right. And that's what I see it. So it's very important that we don't fall into, because I mean, if you read Noam Chomsky's Manufacturing Consent and the part that the media plays in perpetrating the policies of the state, is very critical. So the language, the terminologies, and the definitions that we use are very important, very important.
I think this whole black on black crime is so problematic because what it does is it has us looking at what black people are doing, the crime that black people are doing, rather than crime as a whole. I think Jermaine said it in the sense that there's crime everywhere, right?
Right.
So when Anna told me today there was going to be black on black crime, I said, you know what? I'm going to Google white on white crime because that's what I want to talk about today, right?
Okay.
That's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about white on white crime. And and the only reason why I'm saying that is that how often is there a forum or is there something about discussing white on white crime? Never, right? Because so it's even problematic that we're sitting here and we're going, oh, let's talk about black on black crime. That's the problem. Because black bodies, okay, have been demonized. Black bodies have been criminalized. And to the point that we even accept it as a thing, that there's a such thing as black on black crime. There's crime, period.
Right.
Yeah? There's crime, period. And I think it's really important to talk about that.
So how do we unpack like community issues then? How do we unpack
we can talk,
within
you know what?
community?
You know what we can do? We can actually say, let's talk about crime in our community. We can say that. We don't need to use 3 words. We can say, let's talk about crime in our community. Let's talk about how we can support our youth. We can actually say that. Jermaine said words are important, and they really, really are, right? The minute we start saying black on black crime, okay, you allow other people to open up their mouths and say black on black crime.
Right.
Do you understand? So we need to talk about crime as a whole. So it's not just about, you know, race, it's also about poverty. Do you understand? It's also about a lot of things. And the thing about it, when you think about it, is this: I'm sick and tired, okay, of having to explain and justify and apologize for something that some other black person did, okay? Because at the end of the day, when this white guy was going around raping kids, they didn't ask his white neighbor what happened. When the white boys got the guns and started killing the kids at Sandy Hook, they didn't ask the white person what happened. I am tired, okay? I'm so sick and tired of having to the point that when there's a crime, we all go, please God, don't let it be a black person, because somehow they've made us feel personally responsible. Right. And we shouldn't have to feel that way.
So you think it's the labels then? The labels it's what makes us kind of own the crime or be?
No, I mean you can talk when you say us own the crime. I don't own no crime.
Right. Well, I mean, you just said you're sick of having to explain it. So yeah. So there's a sense of ownership that comes with that, right?
Right. So and the ownership has been thrust upon me. I didn't ask for it.
Right.
Yeah. I didn't ask for it.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Do you think it's the label that's making it, that's linking you to that? It's the
narrative. That's the narrative that they want us to look at. That's
Absolutely.
what they want us to say. So, for instance, okay, this is what I said the other day. Don't get me wrong. I don't agree with people looting shops, and I don't agree with people breaking windows and things like that. But I'll tell you what I thought when I saw the looting. Okay? The thing is, people go, oh, now it messes up your narrative and your message. You're talking about brutality, but yet you're destroying businesses. Actually, no. It doesn't mess up the message. Guess what? There can be thieves and looters and still be issued police brutality. It doesn't conflate the issue. You only say that because that's what you want to look at, right? And now let me put this other way, right? Please, God Almighty, I pray to all those people that they've got insurance. Yeah, because you know those same bastard insurance company that used to insure slaves as stock. One of the reasons why on the boats, they used to throw the body off the boat so they can claim insurance. Yeah, I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just saying I understand.
The whole concept
now,
of insurance,
why they'll be emotional
right?
now. No, it's the truth. So they
Right.
can get theirs. The insurance companies I'm talking about. I pray to God people have insurance. I'm not saying I condone people looting, but the bottom line is this: unless it hits corporations' pockets, i.e., the banks, including Lloyd's TSB, who apologized for their roles in slavery previously, nobody cares. Do you understand? So that's the way I've chosen to look at that looting issue, because what I will not do is turn around and go in, oh no, now that you're looting, no one's going to care about what we're talking about. The people who are not going to care about what we're talking about when they're looting are people who didn't want to care, and they're looking for excuses. And when we then start talking about
so you don't think they care
crime,
anyway, right?
yeah, the people who start talking about black on black crime, what then happens, okay, is the people who don't want to care about the struggles that black people go through, who don't want to care about brutality, that hold on to the black on black crime. So what I don't want to do, okay, is somehow, you know, support that. Black on black crime don't exist. Yeah, it don't exist. It's crime against one person and another. Crime against corporations.
So you're just saying call it crime and leave it at that.
Yeah, crime is crime is crime.
All
okay?
right.
Talk about, how are we going to deal about the crime in Peckham? Let's talk about it that way. How are we going to deal about the crime in our community? Let's talk about it that way. Otherwise, I'm going to have to be responsible for some crime that somebody else committed that I haven't even benefited from. Do you understand?
Well done.
And I shouldn't have to do that.
Thank you.
Regarding, I did say that it emphasised on black on black crime more rather than their European counterparts or any other race. But also, what Gloria was talking about, that she rather just look at it as crime and why they're emphasising that as black crime. What I was going to say is, if you have to understand we're in Europe or we're abroad. There are diversity of different races. Already they are racist. They want us to look bad, so they are going to mention the blacks. If you're in Africa, there are crime, probably as much as it is in Europe, you know, with blacks. But you will not hear on the news or TV saying black on black, because you're in your country. You're in a native of, you know, Africa, Caribbean, or whatever, where there's population, majority is black. They're not going to say black on black. But when you're abroad, it's just a norm. They are going to separate the race.
Okay.
And at the moment, we're at the bottom. So
that's an interesting point. So you think if like there's a high rate of, say, Chinese crime in Africa, we'll start saying we'll get Chinese on Chinese crime or something.
Yeah,
that would be an appropriate label.
No, I'm sorry. They will say triads, you know, and that has happened. They would say that. They would not say a crime. When you look at the news, they will say blah, 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 blah. They will mention race, you know. But we are in Europe or we are abroad somewhere, they are going to do that. Not for our benefit, but I know they're being racist, but that's going to happen. And we do need to deal with black on black crime, you know, even though I don't like to use that term black on black, but we do within our own community, we still need to deal with it in a sense that I remember when I was growing up, yeah, I could walk down the road and see another black person and like, hi, walk through the estate without being paranoid or without getting scared of something. But my children is a different situation. They say, Mom, you have to be careful. This person can, it's nothing to do with drugs. Sometimes it's not drug related. There's a mistaken identity.
Right.
You know, there's different things that
can be drug related.
I think it's more, of course, well, yeah, fine. You know, but there's children that's been stabbed that had nothing to do with anything. you know. But what I'm saying is,
okay, yeah, I see you, Gloria. 1 second, please.
Crime,
finish.
we've got crime that is rising up in our community that we need to deal with. I don't think we should label the black on black, but I think it's more of a social issue, and the fact that we're not feeling responsible for our own anymore. Back in the days, the community come together and deal with the situation. Now we just leave it, we ignore it. You can't even tell the neighbors.
Well, you think we're losing our sense of community?
We are. I think we're becoming more European than we are in Europe. Staying these days in Africa, you see kids are getting out of hand, you report them to their parents. We don't do that abroad anymore.
Personally, I think we're fighting a losing battle. I think with absolutely no disrespect to even think we would spend our time arguing black on black crime and then find a solution to it is never going to happen. You know, the biggest problem as being a black person is I was born into a world that already waged war against me, but none of my parents told me there was war against me. And if we're not quick to let our kids realize that black on black crime is just another statement like a missile coming into a camp during war, our kids will never get the writing. You see, Charlie, they'll bring more words tomorrow. It might be Negro up on Negro crime. That's not the problem. They say a people that fails to recognize their generational enemies.
Sorry, go on, make that
Charlie,
point.
a people that fails to acknowledge their generational enemies are bound to go extinct. Charlie, the problem is ownership. We don't own anything, and we are not at war at the weapons that wage war against us. Look, black people will forever suffer.
Ain't that the truth?
So what's gonna happen if they call it black on black crime? What's gonna happen if they call it black on black crime? After we have this conversation for 10 hours, Charlie, what media house is gonna acknowledge this conversation? What do we own? Who knows about us? Who gives a fuck about us, Charlie? No one gives a fuck about us, Charlie.
So what do we do?
What do we do then?
Right. What do we do?
Ownership. We need to own media houses.
Right.
We need to kick out the coons in our community who actually are at the top and make these white people think it's okay. Look, that's what we need to do. Grassroots. We need to start fixing shit. We need to start boycotting, Charlie. That's the only power we have.
But you know, when you start using words like coons, don't you think that's causing more division within the community?
Let it cause, Charlie, see, the biggest problem is we are always trying to fucking mix up with these people who do not want to mix up with us. Who gives a fuck about division, Charlie? I don't care.
We're not trying to unite black people. We're not trying to unite all the black people. You don't think we need
Charlie, a coon's a blood clot, coon blood. Charlie, a coon is a coon. A sellout is a sellout.
What is a coon? What is a coon? I hate that term. I actually hate that term. Define it.
Yeah, in my small definition, a coon is a sellout, period. Let's keep it short. A coon is a sellout. A man who's black, who wants the acknowledgement of a fellow white person and goes and dances to their tunes, either for position of acknowledgement or wealth or any kind of benefit, Charlie. We need to start fixing that, and we need to start owning stuff. Thank you very much. Charlie, we need to start owning shit. I'm serious, Charlie.
Right. No, okay. I agree with the point about owning stuff.
Until we own, until we learn to boycott. Charlie, let a black person kill a Chinese person tomorrow. You will never see a Chinese pound in a black shop. White people, as happy as we think we are, yeah, as together as we think we are, white people will rather not spend their money with us, Charlie. They will not. Give a black man some money today. He's buying Gucci, Prada, Fendi, German cars. I don't blame him. Black people barely make good belts. We barely make good cars. We barely own any CNN station. We don't own shit, Charlie. And that's the reason why.
So that's what you think we need to focus on. We need to focus on ownership.
Yes, ownership. Because Charlie, that's the only way we can give these lot consequences. They are owning Africa. I swear to God. Come to Nigeria. Chinese people are owning it. White people are owning it. very soon, Africa will be like America. See the way they chased out the Indians? They would chase us out. Because the man who owns the peas, the man who owns the gold, does what? He makes the rules, Charlie. The man who owns the gold makes the rules. And we don't own shit. I'm sorry. We look rich, but we're fucking broke. None of our kids have any trust funds. Charlie, none of our kids have any trust funds. Our women want to fuck us because we're paid. I'm telling you fact. Our women don't even want to fuck with other women unless they're wearing quality weaves. Like, it makes no sense. I don't understand black people.
Sammy.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't. Look, a man on the road.
I think it's kind of got off the rails, but okay.
Sammy.
People get offended.
Hold on.
Yeah,
all right, wrap up the point. Yeah.
Look, I'm not trying to offend anybody, but I don't give a fuck if I offend anybody, yeah? Let us be offended. Maybe that's when we would change. Sometimes frustration is what would actually attract change. We are suffering. Look, I have a 3-year-old
I
son
agree
in my
with
car,
you on the
and
point that I do agree.
I am scared. Martina, sorry. Martina,
wait,
wrap
up the point, because I want to move.
All we do is talk. Charlie, all we do is talk. We don't act. Until we start acting, we are forever going to suffer. Period. Thank you, guys.
I do not agree that black people are always going to suffer. I don't want to believe that state, but I do agree that it all comes down to, all the problem comes down to one thing: ownership. The fact that we have no power. We have no power to make any changes. Like, even the term black on black crime is a problem.
Right. And
it is helping the narrative that everything black is bad, and just to criminalize the black person. Because one thing I always think about is the fact that I know that if it was the same, like, let's say you had other race killing themselves, the way a lot of the knife crime is with black boys, which is, something would have been done about it. It wouldn't have been left to linger on for so long. And similarly, it's just a case, it would have been seen as, oh, they're criminal in other ways, especially a lot of them are young and they're being groomed by other older men that are getting them involved with this lifestyle.
Right.
You talk about, in America, I remember I was watching Dave Chappelle talking, the comedy that he did, talking about Ohio at the moment, that they have a lot of problems with drugs, the whites.
The opium, right. The opium,
yes.
Right.
And then opium problem, they're so huge. But we don't hear it that way because they didn't criminalize it. They turned it into a medical problem. Now, you have the same situation in the 60s and the 70s with black people. A whole nation of people were criminalized. So a lot of this, like, listen to everybody, it just stems back to the same issue. So when you're talking, we're helping them with that narrative as well. I know we need to help. So I agree with Gloria that we probably need to use, a community problem. Crime is crime, right?
Right.
But the more we kind of play into that power, into what they want to criminalize everything black. Everyone has to be apologetic every time there's a black person, something's done wrong. And so,
so let me ask you a question, actually, on that point. One second, let me ask you a question on that point. So do you think there is a high rate of crime in black communities than other communities then?
Yeah, because we're poor.
So it's a poverty issue.
It probably is a poverty issue, and because it's socioeconomical if you think about things like that. Where, in poorer areas, you're going to have more crime, aren't you? So it's what, all interrelated in that sense. And that's why when we pinpoint it and just start calling it black on black crime, I don't think it's helping us.
Absolutely.
I don't think it's helping us. And I actually like the way Gloria just said, as a community, the problem impacts everybody's problem. And that's why whenever there's an issue with law enforcement and police killing black men or black people, and then we conflict the issue and talk about black on black crime, they seem to say that makes it okay for police officers that are there to protect us. At the end of the day, we're not single. We're part of a community. These, you know, their job is there to protect us, killing us, and then we want to justify because there is crime. Crime, you know, black people kill black. It's a crime at the end of the day, right? So, yeah, that's
so
just
that's
what
we need to focus.
Yeah, that's what we need to focus on. The language that we use, I think, is so important, and it all ties into one, like Sammy and Gloria have said as well, is a lack of ownership and power that we have, and that's the reason why those changes and things that need to happen don't happen. It's systemic. So you're talking about, you know, Chicago having so much problems. What are the police officers doing when there is crime within that community? Even though the majority of the crime is between the black people. Why is that crime allowed to perpetuate that way? What are they doing about it?
Martina sort of touched on it a little bit, but it's mainly about, I think the last time we had a conversation, Rosaline spoke about the youth killing each other, etc. And the thing is because we want to criminalize and demonize these kids from when they are little. But it's a grooming issue. Honestly, I've been saying this for such a long time, right? But it's a grooming issue. We need to start looking at these kids, yeah, in the same way we look at victims of sex trafficking, and in almost in a similar sort of way, when we talk about kids that are being trafficked and the paedophiles and all those sort of things, because it's grooming. Because
exactly.
How do you expect these kids to be able to say, I don't want to do this no more? I want to go and tell somebody I no longer want to be a part of this, if they're scared that they're going to get nicked. If they're scared that means that they're going to be seen as criminal. Something needs to happen where we actually protect the kids. But guess what?
So don't you think we can only do that?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Black people, we're not allowed to be kids. We're not allowed to be innocent. If you're a black girl, you'll be over sexualized. If you're black, a young black boy, and I'm saying boy for a reason because they're children, they're kids.
Right.
Yeah? Then you're seen as criminal. So we actually need to lobby. That's what we want to do. Lobby the government in order to bring in some sort of law to protect these kids. Look at this country, this country, like what's called it? This country thing that is sending 12-year-olds on trains to the country to go and sell drugs. They're 12.
Right. Going out to
and then they're sleeping in trap houses at night to go back. And no, seriously, it's real life. But these 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds, they have nowhere to go.
So, I mean, you mentioned lobbying. In terms of lobbying, do we even have a lobbying power? Like, what do we need to do to start to get?
Well, in the UK, we should start a petition, and if it hits a certain amount, it has to be discussed in Parliament. We can start simple as that. We can write to our councillors. We can write to our MPs and keep going and keep going and keep going. Do you understand? We country lines. Thank you, Jermaine. Right. The bottom line is this. That is what we need to do, because the bottom line is this. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. Those mother effers know that's the problem, but it's not their problem because it's not their kids.
Right.
Do you understand? It's not their problem because it's not their kids. So therefore, somebody needs to do it. We need to do it. I mean, I'll do it. I'm just tired because I'm really tired, right? Because the other day, my sister cried. She cried because she was telling me about like the 30-minute video that she was watching of the show, practically begging for his life. And it was so traumatic for her that she cried. Do you understand how traumatic all those things that we hear is going on around? It is on black people. I don't even know them. Do you understand?
Right.
It's torture. It's torture. Because every time you do hear certain things going on, it affects us in the way that if Mr. Smith hears that someone has been burgled, and I said burgled because that's a white crime. And I'm telling you, my plan is to talk about white on white crime.
Yeah, I was gonna come back to that because you actually said that's what you're gonna talk about is white on white crime.
Yeah,
so
yeah,
what
I wanna talk
examples of
about
white on white crimes do you have?
Yeah, I want to talk about it.
Yeah, go
Because you
ahead.
know what? White on white crime is the problem. Let me tell you why it's a problem. My shop got burgled twice. Was it black? Yeah? That's what I want to talk about is white on white crime. Or I want to talk about the guy who called me nigger. Yeah? And he wasn't black. And by the way, he got convicted and he had to pay me £100. But the bottom line, that's what I want to talk about.
I like that. I like that. Tell the story. I love it for Brexit.
No, it's the truth. I said that I was going to tell the story.
I would have told him to keep calling me niggas.
Keep getting £100.
No, he thought he could get away with it. That's why. He was so bold that he admitted it to the police officers.
That is crazy.
And he got fined £100.
Went to court.
See, that's the thing. I parked outside his driveway.
Right.
He told me to move. And I said, cool, I'll move, but don't bang on my car. It's a rental, like it's not my car. I moved. He followed me, called me a black, see you next Tuesday. Yeah, and called me the N-word, okay? And he kept going. I thought to myself, you know what, bruv? I'm gonna call the police on you. I called the police on him. The police told me to go and report at the police station. And I was thinking, I don't have time for this. So I didn't go. 2 days later, they came to my house to tell me, oh, this guy that called you the N-word, what happened? If I tell you, they wrote me a statement. When I read the statement, the victim statement, I felt sorry for myself. Yeah? And the bottom line is this, they went to go and visit him, to talk to him. 2 hours later, they called me and told me he was in custody. Why? Because he admitted to them that he called me an N-word. And why did he do that? Because he himself thinks the police are racist. He thinks he can admit to those two white policemen that, you know what? Yeah, I called her that, you know, those niggas. That's probably what happened, but it was the wrong ones on that day, and then he got convicted.
So they followed up on it.
I've got £100. I can't remember what I spent it on. The most important thing is that he's a convicted racist.
So here's the thing. I mean, even in that story you tell, you didn't follow up on it, and I think for a lot of us, things happen to us, and we just kind of accept it, or we deal with it, internalize it, and we just deal with it. And I think, you know, a lot of things that's happening in our community, we have to learn to be a little bit more vocal about, in terms of following up and following the proper channels to make sure people do get prosecuted, make sure people do get, you know, pay repercussions for their racist views and for whatever else they're doing to kind of, you know, harass us. So, you know, to your point as well. You know, why didn't you follow up on it? Is
the reason why I didn't follow up on it because I'm tired. I'm traumatized. No, it's trauma. Every day it's one problem. Oh, I better not wear my afro out. I don't want them to think I'm not approachable. I am tired because it's exhausting. It is exhausting. It's exhausting. I had a customer because I used to have a cafe. I had a customer who asked me with his mouth, yeah, looked me in the eye and said to me, oh, do you think racism is real? And that is his white privilege right there. The fact that he can live his life and never have to worry about that.
I think it's quite instructive if you look at the history, that some of what we sort of witness in the black community, I guess, it's not random. It's direct, you can say, state intervention. I think it's important to sort of realize that, because if you understand the psychology, the economic system, and the driving factors, you start to see the patterns. So a good idea is if you look at the Second World War, you had about 800,000 roughly black people from across the world who fought in that war. A large percentage of them settled in the UK after World War II. So Caribbean, Nigerian, Ghanaians, etc. And from the moment that they settled, because remember, they helped the UK defeat the Nazis, these terrible racist people. They experienced racism in the UK. And so the German people that the Brits and the Italians that the Brits were fighting against, they were housed. They were integrated into British society, but the Caribbeans, the Nigerians, the Ghanaians, etc., who fought against them on the side of the British were discriminated against. It was so bad that the Conservative Party and the Labour Party were both trying to get these people to go back home. But the German people, the enemies, the terrible Nazis, were allowed to stay and have a community. And then what then happens is that there's a Nigerian guy in the 60s who forms the British Black Panther Party because, it was getting too much. And they organized. So everything we're talking about now, owning buildings, owning properties, all of that was done in the 60s. They organized. MI5 did not like the fact that black people were organizing.
Right.
It was more important for them to destabilize the community. Remember, they weren't going after the German people that settled or the Italian people that settled. They were going after the black people that settled. It was more important for them to destabilize that community than actually try and find a way to integrate them into their society. So that's the history and the legacy of what people are experiencing today. So it's by design that black people, young children from the age of about 4, because up until the age of about 4, black children cognitively outperform or perform equal to every other group. From the age of 4, they start to underperform. So they fail by the education system. The ones that do get through, they come out, they can't get employment.
Mm-hmm.
So it's by design that black people find themselves in an economic condition that then drives them to criminality. So even the groomers are victims. So the groomers grooming the kids, even they are victims. So that whole cycle is what is important for us as black people. We need to organize because organization is key. And it's so key that the British government decided to intervene to prevent organization. That's how important organization is.
So how do we now get organized now? How do we get organized now?
I think I was alluding to that in the previous conversation we had probably about 3 weeks ago, which is we have a lot of blueprints from historical sort of figures. And what we can do as black people is take some of the good parts, learn from their mistakes, and try to create something that is a bit more foolproof so that we don't then fall victims to state trying to intervene to disrupt us. So I think there was an initiative just concluded, which was called the Black Pound Day, for example, which is very good.
In England, right.
Mm-hmm. Patronize black businesses, because one thing as black people sometimes is that because we have a perception because of the way the media presents information and what we consume, we have a higher expectation of some black businesses than we do of non-black businesses. On the flip side, because we are seen as a captive audience, some of the business practices are not as professional to black people as they are to non-black people. So if we start to fix some of those minor details, we create our own economic system that then doesn't require us to interact with the state. Because we know historically, the state doesn't have our best interests at heart, because the system of racism and the system of capitalism that drives Western economies needs black people to be exploitable.
Consumers, right.
Yeah, they need to be exploitable by us consuming or by them having easy access to resources on the African continent. So, so from their perspective, black people organizing is bad for them, but good for us. So organization, that's very key, organization.
I think I was having a conversation with Martina the other day, and I've made a conscious decision that I'm only going to be purchasing things from black-owned businesses now, from hair products to some majority of some of my food, apart from Tesco and Sainsbury's, which I can't get away from. But buying my meat, buying all my black foods, that's what I started to do. Because I think we really, really need to start building our own business, our own infrastructure, standing on our own feet. And also, I also understand that sometimes we intend to go for something that is a bargain rather than sticking with our own, like the Jews, like the Chinese. And I think we need to have
Should we not
that
shop
kind
for
of
bargains? Should we not shop for bargains then?
I don't
well, we should search for bargain, but I think if one...
Oh, we've just lost your audio. All right. Yeah, we're gonna come back to Rosaline. She's on the move. Martina, did you have your hand up as well?
No, I didn't. But yeah, I had the conversation with Rosaline about supporting more Black business owners, and just the fact that, you know, we're consumers, and, you know, our food, our hair products, everything.
Do you want to answer that question for her then? Do we not shop for bargains then? Do we
Yeah,
prioritize?
of course we shop for. I think we shop. Do we prioritize
shopping Black over shopping for bargains?
Of course we shop for bargains, but I think what we tend to do though is that we patronize nearly everybody else but our own. So I mean, it's a competition, it's a marketplace. There's different prices. People are willing to spend a little bit extra on luxury goods, you know, and then there's bargains. So there's something for everyone, right? But I think we just don't support our own, and we just need to do that more. It's, to me, it's not just even in the UK. When I went to the States, I was quite, you know, the fact that a lot of the businesses, like the hair products, you know, as Black women, all our hair products, our skin products are all monopolized by the Asians, nearly all over the world. I'm like, how are we going to break into this? You know, we're just consumers of it. Without them, these people wouldn't have a business. Our food here, you know, by the Indians, and they have no respect for us. Personally, myself, I stopped shopping in certain
places
because of that, because they literally just take our money and they don't give us the same customer service. They don't give us the same respect. The health and safety of the food is not the same. And a lot of the times we just accept it. We don't really understand the power that we have. And these people just, so for me, a long time, I've actually stopped shopping in certain places because the service I was getting wasn't good enough. And I felt that, you know, I'd rather take my money somewhere else where I'm appreciated.
Thank you. All right. So go on, Cause, unmute yourself.
I was going to answer Rosaline's question also, and your question about should we shop Black? Should I take priority over bargain? I think it should. You know, I think a Chinese person, Indian, white people, they do that every single day. If, like she just said just now, if you
their prices are typically lower though.
Okay, so let's address.
You know what they do, Charlie? They monopolize the whole system. You get like the nail shops in an area, and they all like make sure that the price is set at one standard for themselves. So we don't even know whether it's cheap or not. They literally.
Yeah. You know why they're able to do that also? When they work together, like in terms of, say like the hair shop, for example. Just like Walmart. That's why Walmart is cheaper than most companies, because they buy more, they spend more money so that they get it at a bigger reduction.
So yeah, it's a buying power.
You know, it's a buying power. They have a bigger buying power than us, even though we end up spending more money. So that is something that we got to focus on more, the buying power. I raised my hand earlier because I wanted to speak on in terms of you asked the question when Jermaine was talking, like, so how do we organize, right?
Exactly.
And Jermaine is right. So the bigger picture overall is this equality, right? And then whether it's police, whether it's the economy or whatever, it all kind of work together, system. So overall, my thing is, we want Black power, because the system that we have, it does not work for us. I don't know how long it's going to take, 50 years, another 100 years. So essential goal for all Black people, it should be Black power. And what do I mean by Black power? I mean that we control every single system, all aspects of our lives, our school system, our education system, our economical system. We're not there yet. So what do we do today? Like, what can we do on this call today? Go into your community and organize that. If it's 5 of you guys to say, okay, we're going to start this, or we're only going to do this, before even like petitions, before going to these people, what can we do amongst ourselves? And that is something. So
what's an example of that? When you say going to your community and start this, what's this?
So An example of something that we're doing right now, which is a Saturday school.
Okay.
Starting a Saturday school, because at the end of the day, it starts with the kids, just educating them on the basic being Black and, what it means, our own heroes, our own scientists, because they don't, our children.
So it's like this is back to the history that everybody keeps talking about.
Exactly. Yeah. I think it's important. He empower people. He empowers you as a young child. When I say, oh, my father was this, in my community, the legislature was this, the person that did this was this, I want to do the same thing so I can see people that look like me. So it's as simple as that. So that's one. Work within. You can start that like today. Make 5 of us on this call. You live in the UK. If you're in Brixton, if you're in South London, you can say, guys, by the way, this is where I buy my food. This is it. And you can patronize that person. Also, look among yourself. Like, where do you spend most of your money on? Like, most of your food. What do you eat? What do you wear? What do you put in your hair? Where do you get your makeup from? And things like that, just addressing those things, because that money should be in our community. An example is my community and Grand. So the nanny for my children, she told me like, oh, she doesn't buy her hair at the Black shop. And I'm like, why? Because right opposite, there's a Black beauty shop that just opened. There's a Black beauty shop that's been there for maybe 8-9 years, but there's a new shop owned by like a big chain, white chain,
right? Like
literally directly opposite. I'll show you to Charlie when you come. It's there. And then so a lot of people are now saying, oh, this is an issue. The Black-owned business, they have to put like Black-owned on there. White people got mad.
Right.
They went and ripped the sign down. They said it's a racist sign. And he's saying, these people open right across the street from me. The product is cheaper. They're doing this and that. So they want to shut them down. So like we made it a point in this community, sending emails out, contacting the schools, contacting the parents or the different football team and just say, guys, listen, this shop is there. This is where we should be shopping. And, we got complaints. Some people say, well, the woman is rude. She's this and that. And guess what? I went myself. I went and spoke to the owner. I said, yo, you want us to shop here? You have to, you have to be nice to
customer service.
You have to step your customer service up. And also, where are you buying your stuff? Can you work with other people that are selling what you're selling to get more buying power? So we can address them. When I'm in London, I go to Asafa. You introduce me to Asafa. So when I go there, that's where I go to eat. You know what I'm saying? And I'd rather go spend my money at these Caribbean or African restaurants that are owned by us than, spending a wide establishment. Like, look at what's happening in Brixton. Where's that money going to? It's in Brixton, but that money that we're spending in Brixton is not going to our community.
It comes right out.
So it's an example. So what can we do? We can start doing those things today. Like, just look at that inwardly.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on what Martina was saying about a lot of these shops in places like Peckham, Brixton, and then they're not owned by Black people, and they treat us like vermin, like they treat us like crap. Like, I've seen them beat a Black woman, like they beat her. Okay, I've seen the level.
For what? For what reason? It doesn't matter.
I'll tell you what, I wouldn't even tell you the reason. You know why? Because it doesn't fucking matter. Yeah? That and that's the first thing. Okay?
Right.
And it's one thing. My issue with those shops and things is it's not that we don't get good service. They don't respect us and they don't like us.
They do not.
Yeah, they will take our money. There was this one shop in Peckham. They battered this Black guy. And I'm telling you, for weeks, a group of Black people stood outside that shop. If you dare enter that shop, if you dare enter that shop, the way the Black people would drag you at that shop no longer exists. And stood outside that shop for a long time.
Oh, they stood outside discouraging people from going in there?
Yes. The shop is now closed down because, eventually they're mysteriously called hygiene people.
That's Black power.
And that's organizing.
That's Black power.
That's organizing.
Yeah, that's organizing. That's Black power. That's what we're talking about.
Was it the one closed down for health and safety issues, Gloria?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the same shop that it stood outside and told people not to go into. And let me tell you, I walked past that shop. The way they shouted at me, I was like, I was never going in. I was scared. Yeah? Right? And it's not just that.
Right.
The woman who has a hair shop, who had a hair shop in Peckham, who is now closed down. When she first opened, right, these shops, they're usually owned by Indian people, told her they will make sure she closed down. No, the point I'm making is that people are organizing against us around us.
Right. And so we need to do the same.
Forever and ever and ever. So I'm not saying we should organize against anybody. I am saying we need to organize for our benefit. One, yes, to spend black, but also you don't need to respect me, respect my money. Do you understand? My money ain't even being respected.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, Gloria. Go on, Janine. Unmute yourself, please.
Just following on from Gloria's point, that lady, I forgot her name. She's someone I follow. She didn't only close down because of financial reasons, because there were lots of black people going in her shop and stealing. Did you not see the videos? Lots of young girls were going in there stealing from her too. And there was a video going around where they tried to even attack the lady, because she's got a shop in Lewisham as well. So she was being pushed out by Pax and all the rest of them, and Shabba and everybody else. But on top of that, she also had our own people going in there stealing from her. So that's a problem we have in our community as well. If we want our people to stay in our community, we've got to support them. So that's a problem, I think. Going back onto what I think it was Martina was saying earlier on, was that what they actually do is, I speak to Shabba and them, they actually work collectively. So they buy in bulk. So all the shops you see, they don't buy in bulk. That's how they reduce their prices.
Right.
So that's how they can out anybody. Do you understand? So when the lady was charging, like, say, probably $12.99 for her shea butter, they were charging $9.99.
So how do we organize then? How do we organize in our community in terms of that?
So we need to come together. We have to, the thing is, it's about trust in it. We have to have trust in our community. Some people are not trusting each other. So if we come together collectively, like say me, you, Cos, Gloria, if we said, you know what, we're going to set this aside. We have contracts. We do everything. This is what we're pushing forward. Then things can work. But we're not trusting each other. We don't trust each other like the Asians will trust each other. And that's the problem.
I think also, sorry to cut you, Janine. I think one of the problems is nobody wants to spearhead this. So we all say, yeah, we need to come together. We need to have unity. But who's going to spearhead this? Who leads this? Who leads the coming together?
Well, like I said, yeah, for example, because I'm doing some work with some of my sisters, yeah, it's about having a group of people that you can know, that you can trust. You see, if you've got a contract, you know, contract speaks a lot, you know. If you have a contract, we could put something together. We put a certain amount of money in. We push that. When I was in Ghana, yeah, let me explain something to you. When I was in Ghana, I was working with some school, yeah, and what they done is they like picked up the children off the street, and they pay their parents money, so the kids didn't have to go to school, so work and come to school instead. Yeah. Right. So they pay their parents money instead of sending your kids on the street. You'd earn money. When the children get to year 10, they'd buy them land, and then after that, they would pay for their, you know, their everything, their clothes, their everything. And then a year after, all the money they make in that year, the year after, that money goes back into the school for the next year coming out. That's like a regeneration, like it's generating things. Do you understand? And that's important. We don't do things like that. Do you understand? We need to put money in. People don't want to put money in. That's the problem here. So we have to have some kind of foundation. If we don't have the foundation, what are we standing on? The Asians got the foundation. The Chinese got the foundation. Where's our foundation?
I just want to also piggyback on what Janine just said. Sorry. There's a statement that says, hurt people. Our people have been so bastardized, traumatized. We are living a system that was created for us to fail. So we need to undo the hurt and create our own system that will succeed. We know that our culture talks about communal living, working together, because together we rise, separate we fall. So we need to create our own systems that will our programs that will help to deal with the systematic poverty that is in our community, the mental issues that's in our community, and also the way we relate with each other, how we even look at our existence in this foreign land that we are in. We need to take the whole thing, take a look at it, and build a system for ourselves, looking at the various sectors in which we operate: education, business, all the various sectors in which we relate, so that we can, even utilizing this tool, this powerful tool that you have, Charly, to educate as well as coordinate our activities. Something happened, I think, Kosu probably was one of the people who attended it. A few days ago, there was a meeting of African consuls general, elected officials in the US, as well as community leaders. And this meeting was the first of many to see how to deal with this situation, that is Africans in the diaspora. How do we unite and move forward? Whereas I was part of organizing this, I still hope that it will continue to move. I think that is a step in the right direction. And one of the things that we want to do is to look at this. How can we organize ourselves to come up with systems that deal with our own personal situation? Because this system, even the system in our countries, I think we're all Nigerians. I don't know, maybe.
Mostly, or mostly.
Well, it doesn't matter.
But it doesn't matter.
All the systems that they put in place.
We're all Africans.
Well, it doesn't matter. So we Africans have been given systems in our countries that have been put there to ensure our failure and our continued servitude to the colonizers. So we need to change it, break it, and make it ours.
Thanks, Joyce. Go on, Rafiu.
I think the first thing we need to do now is, like me, I always don't want us to be addressing the kind of problems that we have. We know we have myriads of problems. So I think what we need to be doing now is that how do we solve this problem? And I look at what Cos and my sister Joyce said. I think let me share one of the research I did in my class, and which is one of the basic problems that most Africans have in diaspora, mostly where we live. And this is the base of the problem. I think when we are able to solve this, everywhere we are, we can start moving forward. Child, Cause, everybody. In our mind, we know we don't belong there. Every time we walk, we want to go back home. We want to be doing something home. So emotionally, we don't take, even from time, we don't take this place like home. We don't train our children to see this place like home until we begin to see that effort of nationalization. Like, is it possible for us eventually to denounce Nigeria, Ghana, Sierra Leone, Liberia, like the white Irish Italians? When they came here, they forgot whether they are Italians, they forgot whether they are Irish. They forgot everything. They take America, that this is our home. And
so
they take it.
Are you saying we need to make America home and then denounce Africa?
No, until we begin to train our children in a way that they could see this place as a home, and we begin to infuse that change in them gradually. That is the first step.
But hold on that point. I think that's already happening. A lot of our children already see themselves, or that are born in the West, see themselves either as British and more as British and American, if born in those places,
they still have that parental control.
Right.
Our generation, which is basically our generation, we still instill there in their mind that Africa is your home.
In fact, when they start doing business too, we still want them to go back to Nigeria, Ghana, Sierra Leone, to go do business, to go do one or two. We want them attached. I'm not saying we should not be attached. You get what I'm saying? But what I'm saying is that we need to face it. What makes these white people or whatever supreme here is because they build a generation where they find that this place is home. We have no other home. This is our home, and this is where we belong to. Now, on the issue of unity, which is very, very important, is that I've looked around, part of the research I've done, there is no community in the whole of the United States where you have African community as like a kind of, they are in the majority. Apart from places like Harlem, you know, but even all those places, they are still not really like very organized, like the way we can say they can take over things. But they have. Now, let me give you an example. In Buffalo, I will quickly wrap it up. In Buffalo,
right,
for a very long time, this is part of a research. For a very long time, the foreign community was very, very not very minimal. But you will now begin to see that there are so many Pakistan and India in Buffalo. They are buying houses and they are calling each other, come and buy house. And before you know, they are controlling everywhere. Now, when you walk into Dunkin' Donuts and everywhere, you see more India and Pakistan. When do we want to start all this? How do we now begin to, from the community, like Joyce said, from the grassroots, is where all this campaign is going to start. It is a grassroots thing. Then from grassroots, then it comes up.
Yeah, I think in terms of what Rafi was saying, like, I feel like we have that already. A lot of our brothers, African Americans that have like, you know, third, fourth generation in America, they don't see this place no different than anywhere else. They look at America as home, you know, and I think even a lot of African immigrants, like the second generation, even some of the fourth generation, they do see America as home. And I don't think there's anything wrong with seeing the fact that we have a direct connection to Africa as African immigrants. There's nothing bad in seeing Africa as our first home. Even we educating and re-educating our African American brothers and sisters that, listen, Africa is your home first. In fact, we want to remove the American part from African American and just say, listen, we're all African, because that is part of the larger division. I just really don't, I think if we don't even get that right, I think it's going to be very tough for us to get anything else right, because that is the first and foremost identity for every single one of us, regardless of which country we immigrate from or the colonial masters named us or whatever. I think that's very important. So I wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, of course. I did not say we can never, even me, you know me talking to you, even my kids, we can never deny that. Never. But what I'm saying in essence is that I'm just trying to share a research why those things are still the way it is. It's because Africans, we love our background. We love it so passionately. We don't want to deny anything anyway. You get what, and it's still the same thing. I'm just sharing the research with you that why.
So what was so what's the point of the research? What was the conclusion of the research?
The research was trying to show that Africans are very, very passionate and very, very attached to their roots, no matter what. And he's just trying to tell you what I'm trying to say.
But the Italians, the Jewish, the Indians, they're doing exactly the same thing.
Exactly.
I think it's a lack of historical.
Then why are we failing?
But I was going to say that I don't agree with you, but I can't even say that because I'm not too sure what you're saying, if I'm honest. And what I mean is that a lot of Africans and their kids and stuff, yes, they're rooted in their root, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm glad that they are, but also, have you considered perhaps that they don't feel like they belong where they are? So your research, did it show that you're not made to feel like you're British? You're not British. You're not American. You know, I'll give you an example. And that's a big problem in itself. And you talk about, oh, you go to Dunkin' Donuts and there's Pakistani people there, etc. They're buying houses. We don't have access to funds in the way that other people do. So I think instead of thinking, so why are we not succeeding? You have to remember that it's not our fault that we're not succeeding. I'm sure there's things we could do better, but it's already set against us, right? And when you say things like that, right? I'm not gonna. At the end of the Black people, African people work so bloody hard. Okay, I remember my mom going to take modern and going to work at 5 a.m. every morning.
Hold on.
Okay?
So why do we not have 1 second, Gloria? So why do we not have the same access to funds that these people have?
That's
because
exactly
it's
what
redlining. In America, for instance, redlining, right? Because everywhere people live, they told the banks, don't borrow their money. That's why they couldn't put down.
No,
I
disagree with you. I'm sorry. Let me.
No, you don't need to agree with facts.
Hold on. Let her finish that point. Let her finish the point, and you can give your rebuttal on it.
When I talk about access to funds and I talk about redlining, you do not need to agree with facts, because facts are facts, whether you agree with them or not. The bottom line is this, yeah. We don't have access to funding in the way that other people do. So when you want to talk about why we are not where other people, please look at the roots and look at what the issues are. And apart from that, can we just take a minute and think about, even though I feel like we're going through a lot as a people, think about actually the fact that we've even survived, right? The fact that we're even a lot of us thriving. Can we just give ourselves a pat on the back because we're actually trying, right? So it would be really good once in a while to talk about the positive things we're doing, how we're thriving, how we're doing good, in spite of the bullshit.
In spite of everything we're going through. All right, thanks.
So
Thanks, Gloria. Go on.
The basic problem is just because the unity that we are talking about. Most people that we are talking about, they don't even go to the bank to borrow money. They do this within themselves. Let me give you an example. When I came, almost like 20 years when I came to this country, I have a studio, and I was told by one of my boss who is Pakistani that why can't I share with a Nigerian like me? Then we can move from there, move to this is how these people do. But I told him based on my background, no, I can't share my room with anybody. But you will see this Pakistani, they will come into this country, 3 families living share 3 rooms. And before you know,
why couldn't you share your room? Why couldn't you share your room?
That's personal. That's personal. But what I'm saying now is the thing in every one of us.
Yeah, but actually,
united.
Hold on. Let him finish his point. Gloria.
It can't be personal. Why
couldn't you share? Make my point. You made your point and I listen, please. Can you I will listen.
Yeah, go on. Make your point. Yeah, it's fine.
So what I'm saying in essence, either we like it or we don't like it, every one of us, we are here. We work. We go to school. We don't need to be talking about our academic background or how we work in this country. We want it better. But what I'm telling you, and whether you like it or not, is that we are not united. And that united is what is affecting us. Because those people who are making it, they go beyond going to the bank. They go beyond going to the bank. They go beyond. It is within themselves. They help themselves. We are talking about the Jewish. The Jewish help themselves. All these things we are talking about, the Jewish have gone far above us in that. They circulate their money within themselves. They invest within themselves. Let's get there without having to be looking to go to Chase or whatever and ask them for money. There are rich people among us. If their concern is that we have produced so many Africans in this country who have made it a made name, and they're still there. Why are we not getting support from them too? So this is what I'm talking about.
Just want to quickly say is what Black Hawk was saying. It's kind of what I'm saying to you. It's about trust. It has to be about trust, because you see, when you don't trust people, you're not willing to give them your money. That's where the contract comes in. If we don't have a system, it's not going to move forward. That's my point, because I've lived on the road with Asian people. There are about 10 of them living in that same house. They build amongst themselves, then they will buy another property. That's how they monopolize. They're not monopolizing. So that's what I'm trying to say. Exactly what I said before. It's about trust. Look what he just said. The man said to him, why don't you and your people put money together? And he's saying he's had a bad experience before. So it's about getting a contract, getting a system, and then we move forward. We can't move forward with all these things hanging over us. Absolutely. We need to move forward, man.
Thanks, Janine. All right, go on, Rosaline.
Right, so my kind of thing. Right, this is what I was trying to say, that we need to start from the community and our children and ourselves and heal. It's all about trust. It's embedded in us, and I think it's through slaveries, or I don't know if it's been built in us, even in Nigeria. You are taught to create your own business by yourself, with yourself, selfishly. To come together as a team to build something is like a no-no. It's like we don't trust each other. Somebody's going to cheat each other. Something's going to be blah, blah, blah. It's all the selfishness that has been built in us. It's very hard to get rid of. I don't know where it came from, but it came from something.
So you think we're more selfish than other communities? Is that what you're saying?
I think we don't. Okay, I think we're selfish in a way. It's all about me, individual, not our people, not community. That's why Africa is where it is. The government or the governments there, they think about themselves. Let me take the money. Let me buy 20 and 30 cars. Forget the rest of the country. And that's them down to even the lower classes, like, let me make it. I don't need anybody's help. I will take your money, but don't be a business partner. So one more thing. I mean,
one second, guys. I can't get all the audio in if we're all talking at the same time. Finish your point, Rosaline, and I'll go to Jermaine.
So the difference between us is the Chinese, the Indians, the Jews, they work together. Lower class, higher class, they work together. If we can work together, we will succeed. Full stop.
Thank you. All right, go on, Jermaine.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that I think sometimes it's super important that we avail ourselves of history, because I think sometimes people make points that on the surface seem sort of sensible points, but doesn't take into account historical facts, like the historical reality. So he made a point about, he mentioned that what's important is that Black people need to not see themselves as coming from some African country, but seeing themselves as part of whatever Western country they're in, because according to Black Hawk, all the white people in America don't see themselves as coming from Europe or whatever. Actually, that's not true, because if you look at all the institutions, all the neo-colonialist institutions that exist today, it's organized on a racial principle. So the white people in America are very much organizing themselves, whether you look at it via the UN, the World Bank, the IMF, Amnesty International, they're organizing themselves in a racialized structure. So to somehow imply that the issue that Black people face in America is the fact that they are not identifying more with America, it's not backed up by the facts. The reality doesn't support that. So that's the first point. Then you were talking about, well, we don't need access to banks because we have rich people. Well, unfortunately, in the way the game works, capital is what drives the acquisition of more capital. So unfortunately, every group needs access to capital, and most capital in a capitalist system is controlled by capitalist institutions. So yes, individuals can do things, individuals can support things, definitely, but capital is introduced to that process, which is why the Asian community, they can build among themselves, but to go to the next level, they need to access capital from the capitalist structure. So they have access to bank funding and bank loans to drive them to the next step. So to make that point and to further buttress that point, in the 60s, a lot of Black Britons owned whole areas in the Notting Hill area. This was money that they saved among themselves with the partner system to buy up multiple properties. The government came directly to them, used something called compulsory purchase order, and took the properties away from them, okay? So the Black people had identified with this country. They had bought property and owned a very expensive area in London, but the GLC used government policy to disenfranchise them. You see the same thing in America with eminent domain. You see Seneca Village. So
where Central Park is today.
If you have no awareness of history, then you make a simplistic statement because it hasn't got any facts backing it. So I understand if we're looking at it on the surface level, then what you are saying makes perfect sense. But if you don't account for the historical reality in the system that wasn't built for Black people, that was built to exploit Black people in the West and on the continent, then you're going to keep on making the same mistake. That's why as people, we keep on making the same mistake over and over again, because we think the only enemy is ourselves. So we never develop a system in the context of the wider sort of white supremacist system that we're all fighting against and that has worked against us from the moment in the 1400s when we made contact with these people.
Thank you. Thanks, Jermaine. Great points.
Thanks, Jermaine.
Great point. Wicked. Love
Amazing
it.
point.
Love it.
Okay, I don't know who else had their hand up. I kind of lost track of all of that. Anybody else had a point to make?
Yes.
The truth.
Yeah, go ahead, Anderson. Go on.
What I was saying, what the point that he actually mentions, I did say that the system has never been with us in the first place. The system was never made for us. We understand that clearly. Now, the solution, as I said, is to make sure that we spend our Black money within our Black communities. This is where it all starts. And Gloria was saying earlier on that this is, if they don't respect her, they will respect her money. So she's entitled to spend wherever she wants to spend. And that's a fact. But we need to make sure we emphasize on that for real. Because
so I think we did say that everybody's in agreement that we need to come together. So we're now looking at what are some of the ways, like how do we spearhead this? How do we
I can start somewhere. What I want to say is,
so that's why I want you to speak on, please.
In regards to our educations and our backgrounds, we all have something to offer to our own communities. Yeah, I teach free classes every Tuesday. I've been doing that for the last 18 months. Every Tuesday, I teach free classes about the financial market and how to trade within the financial market, specifically for Black young people, specifically.
Right.
So I understand how important it is for them to learn about economics and how to move forward within a system that is against us. I understand that.
Okay.
But there's a lot of people that talk, but they don't walk that walk.
Well, that's great. I think, Cos also spoke about some of the stuff he's doing, in his little way in his community. So if you want to go ahead and drop some of that details in the comment section, that would be great as well.
Of course I will.
Let me go to Lanray. Lanray's got his hand up. Go and unmute yourself. Thanks, Anderson.
Yeah, like I agree with all the points people are making in terms of buying Black and everything, but I feel like what ties everything together is banking Black. Like this goes to, say, for example, a business.
Right.
They want to get a loan, but they go to a white establishment, right? The credit score is low, whatever the case may be. They don't get the loan to scale the business. But if you're banking Black, it's easy to kind of get that loan, obviously based on your credibility as well and your outgoings, incomes, and everything.
But do we even have enough Black banks even in the UK? Right. I know there are a few in the US, but I don't even know about any in the UK.
Six Black banks in London that are major, owned by Nigerians and Ghanaians. You can research.
Where's the Black banks?
Are they retail banks though, or are they banks for investors?
Both. You can
well, send some details in there because I've never seen any Black banks. Exactly. I'll be banking with them.
And I feel like We don't even need the traditional type of black banks, right? We don't need those retail. We just need to create our own type of Monzo, basically. A Monzo banking online app, that's so easy. It's easy to go viral with that. Tell people, yeah, download this app. You need £1 to sign up, whatever the case may be. I feel like that's the solution.
Do it, Larry. Do it. Do it.
You know what?
Yeah.
I've told my girl, yeah, I've said in the next 2 years, obviously I have my own project I'm working on. If nobody does it, I'm going to do it. You know, and the group can hold. So.
Okay. All right.
We will.
We'll hold you to that. All right. Let's go to Joyce. Unmute yourself, please.
All right. Thank you. Larry, we're definitely going to be looking out for you to do that, because the reality is that African people, or should I say Black people, you know, they are cheating on every level. When we are working for someone, we receive the least amount of pay. This PP grant that the government gave out in the U.S., one of the strikes against you is that if you have bad credit. Tell me, which Black-owned business doesn't have bad credit? You know, so they were not able to get some of the loans. Even trying to get a house, buy houses somewhere, your price that you pay as a Black person is higher than a white person, what a white person would pay. So the reality really is that, you know, they have us on every level. But should we fold up and die? No, of course not. We have to develop, like I said before, our own way of doing things. And regarding the issue of us not trusting ourselves, that's a big issue. That's a big issue. We all know this. We've had people who have stabbed us in the back, not once, not twice, not 3 times. But it's really because of, like I said, hurt people, because of the lack in our community. People are struggling. And sometimes, I mean, I don't condone it, but I understand it. I don't want it to happen to me again, but I understand it, you know. It's because they have a lack. They are struggling and they're trying to get something. So we got to create stuff. We have to create stuff for our people. We have to find a way out of this quagmire that we are in all these various countries, including our own respective countries, you know. And anyone who's ready to start listening, you know, Gloria keeps saying, you do it, you do it, you do it. And I know the reason why our people are very difficult. I mean, they find it difficult to start something is because we're worrying about paying our bills. We're worrying about it may not work. But here's the answer, though. Black Hawk talked about it. Instead of us worrying about paying our bills, you know, all of us want to have our own homes. We want to have our own houses, our own apartments, our own cars and whatnot. Why don't we just share resources and utilize the money that we save from that to do things for ourselves? Let's share resources. Why are we spending all our money on all this stuff that we can, look, we have a car. 10 people can borrow that car, can invest in that car. I don't use the car every day, you know? So maybe somebody else can use it another day and, you know, get the use out of that car, but we are saving our money to do other things.
But to that point, sorry to cut you, Joyce. To that point, are you, you know, I'm just going to put it to a personal level for you. Same as I asked Black Hawk, like, are you willing to share a car? Are you willing to share housing with someone at this stage?
I've done it before. That's why I'm saying it. I've done it before. Yeah, I've done it before. I don't drive every day.
Right.
So if we have that arrangement where we're both paying for the bills, insurance in our name, and we're paying for it, of course, yes, it saves me money.
But I find that a lot of Black people are adverse to this, and I don't know, you know, I don't want to make blanket statements again. From those I've spoken to, I find that a lot of people are against the idea even of living together.
And I understand it. I've told you, listen, a lot of people in Nigeria know me that I help out. Right. So if you're going to come to the US, they look for my phone number, they look for me, they know that I'm going to help them. They might stay in my house for a few days. I'm going to help them navigate. Has the experience been great for me? No, not all the time, but still yet, who's going to help our people? I realize this is our people. These are our people. They need help.
Right.
After I've done what I can do for them, they know that they'll never come back again.
I mean, it's a stepping stone, so they can pay it forward in most cases.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, in most cases, those who appreciate it, they know, and they can pay forward.
Yeah, I just wanted to say on that sharing of funds, and I think don't want to make generalization, but I see a lot of like Black women that have great jobs and have funds and resource that, to me, our priority sometimes just wrong and different. It's more about looking rich and actually, when we're not, it's more about we can organize and come together when it comes to parties, spend so much money on that, and the Ashwebis and one there, all that. The amount of money that goes into that, I never understand.
To give the money for
they could galvanize the way they do those all their parties,
right,
and they put it into something actually useful. My God, we have so much to talk about funds. We do.
Hold on, Gloria. Let her finish the point. I'll come to you next.
What was Gloria saying?
I said that was just one their party puts a lot of money in Black people's pockets. Event planners.
No, I don't. No, just to come and eat and buy loads of clothes and up to a point, but just to flash out and buy all the designers and Gloria. I think there's more we could do with our money. There'll be a lot more, something that's standing.
I agree with you. I'm just saying. I agree with you that we can definitely do more with the money, and perhaps it's a different place to channel the money.
Right.
I'm just saying that those same Owambe parties are also helping other Black people, small businesses, grow their business, from the caterers, from the tailors, from the person that makes cake. So it also,
it benefits some people, right, within the community.
It would always have that. But why is that our emphasis in organizing, in building is about parties? It's about, why is that the case? We're not building anything of any lasting.
Well, let me just say this. I don't think there's anything wrong with organizing for parties, because it's actually is a thriving industry. And we need to, if anything, we need to have more ownership in the buildings where these events are taking place. But there's a lot of people, there are a lot of event organizers that have gone on to do great stuff. There's a lot of people, even there's some people on this call that is part of their livelihood. So organizing for parties, I don't think is an issue. I just think, to your point with those Owambe things, I think it just shows that we can organize, we can come together, we can do this, right? So how do we now take that and apply it to other industries should be our focus.
Charly,
sure, go ahead.
From our background, the party is part of us, and there's nothing wrong about that. We celebrate a lot. But what we are saying is that sometimes when you have a problem, and you need money to contribute money for you, let's say we know our community. When you have a problem, you don't see people giving you money for that thing. But when you come to party, it's like you have friends who would like to go out and drink. When you have personal problem, this friend will never give you money to solve your problem. That friend will rather buy you a bottle of beer in the beer parlor and stuff like that, and you see. So the focus is what we are trying to talk about. Let's try to help each other, so we lift each other up. Let's have that spirit in our mind. We definitely we will do party, we will do everything. But as we also bring money together to celebrate ourselves. Let me give an example. I will give two examples of two people.
right there in this group that I wish that if they are just like every other person in our community will have gone wrong. Cause number one, Joyce number two. These are people that I respect so much. I'm not talking about you, Charlie, because you are the moderator. You know, but let me just talk about these two that I'm you know, cause these are two people that I know within our community. They've been doing and they've been pulling people up. We need to start developing this. That's how we can grow.
So even just, you know, jumping off the example you're making, it sounds like these things are working. These things are there. There are people within the community that are helping. There are people within the community that are working together, and there's people within the community that are you know, pushing the unity forward. So why is it we always say we're not united? Why is it we always have that narrative in our community?
Because we don't see the result. Where is the result? If we have that,
no, you see the result in parties.
Yeah.
But it's just when it comes to I know what I'm saying. I'm not saying that you don't need party. Every Jewish, everyone celebrate, but we can organize for those things. We can make those things happen. But when it comes to empowering ourselves in other ways, no, we're all by us. We want to do it by ourselves. We don't want to trust other people, but they can trust people when it comes to, you know, the big. So if we can apply the same thing for other endeavor, that would be great.
Right. Go ahead, Rose.
You know better. Like I'm sorry. Like in New York, for example, everybody knows that Nigerian Entertainment Award has been there for a long time. When people now see the Nigerian Entertainment Award moving up and say, "Oh, I think next year, since Cost has been doing it for long, I want to go do my own," rather than me, you know, bringing ideas together and work so that we will have a very big network. I would rather not do that. I would rather want to be on my own, and I will start competing with everybody. This is the spirit that I think we need to have. We need to have this collectivity. Okay, somebody has started that business. Why should I go into that business? If I have ideas, I should approach that person. I say, okay, you know what? Can we be partners? I have this idea. I have this idea. Let's work together. If we start doing that, that's how you have a network. But now we don't have a network. We have individuals.
To that point, I hear this a lot where people say, "Why would you start one knowing that I have one?" And I don't think that's an issue, because we don't even have enough. And there's plenty to go around. So I don't think having those businesses or having those things, knowing that other people are doing it, is the issue. What organizing does is to make sure that your event, for example, doesn't clash with mine. So, you know, it becomes an issue if we're having a similar event on the same day, and that way we're splitting the same crowd, right? It's not an issue if, you know, I'm doing an event on this week and then you do your event the following week. It doesn't affect yours. It doesn't affect mine. And, you know, when we look at the same, and on the same vein, when we look at, like, in Black communities, you see barbershops one after the other. And then I'm like, how do these people even make money? Right? And that's where I think organizing also comes into play. Like, you can say, and for example, if you're going to get a franchise with a McDonald's, they're going to tell you cannot open another McDonald's franchise within a certain radius, because, you know, in order to, like, you know, not to create competition for another franchise, right? So that's where organizing, I think, will come into place. It's not the issue. The issue is not going into the same businesses or doing the same things. It's being in direct opposition and creating a clash or competition for each other.
But then the thing that you asked before, sorry, I'm just going back on points that I picked up on before.
Okay.
Something obviously in terms of, should you take a hit in terms of cost, a bargain over, you know, spending more to support a Black business? I feel we should, because we have to be intentional about what we're doing. This is for a reason. It's a movement, right? So you've got to be very intentional. So if it's 50p difference, support that business. Because one thing we've obviously ascertained through this conversation is that the Indian businesses, every other business, they come together so they have a better bargaining power that we don't have. we lack coordination, we lack organization, right? So these people are not benefiting from being able to buy in bulk like those other people are able, where they have numerous shops all over the place. So they will, you know, a black business will be losing if we want to bargain with them all the time. So we should be very intentional and intentionally support them if the difference is minimal. Do you know what I mean? An example that I was just saying to a friend of mine just now. There was a guy that I was speaking to, and he said that he went to, there was in his area, Grace, or wherever it is, there's a black grocery store selling plantain. He must have been selling the plantain, let's say 3 for £1.50, and the Indian shop across the road that just opened up was selling his for, say, 3 for £1.20. So he went into the black shop and he said to the guy, hi, first time I'm coming to your shop. The guy across the road is selling his plantain for £1.50. Will you give me, can I pay the same thing as him? And the guy was like, no. So he was like, really? This is the first time in your shop. I want to support you. Can I pay the same thing? I guess the guy said no again. Then eventually the guy said, yes, no problem. Because he said, look, because of 30 pence, you'd rather lose me as a customer as opposed to having me come back continuously. So anyway, the guy then agreed, like, okay, you know what, just take it for that price. It's fine. I hear you. I agree with you. Thank you for that. But this friend of mine still decided never to go to that shop again. One thing I find with us black people, I feel that we should try and forgive each other. When we speak about black businesses, one thing we tend to say is, but the standard is not good, but the this is not that, but the that is not that. You know, do you think somebody will
need to receive criticism and follow through?
Yeah, I feel we should receive criticism and follow through, but I think we need to be forgiven as well. Don't write off a black business because you think that they, you know, oh, the standards, the this, the that. You know, maybe money, support them more rather than talking down ourselves very quickly. You know, like somebody said, they went into the shop. I think Cosmos said before, he went into the shop and he advised the business better. Go in and empower if you see fit that, you know what, maybe if you do this way, you'll be better off. I know Gloria wanted to do an hygiene training thing for black restaurants because that's one of the things that we lack. If you were to go online and check out some of our ratings, the ratings are shit. Our ratings are shit. So what can we do to improve each other? What sorts of you don't need to be harsh. Sometimes people's business is their baby. So if I came and I want to talk about your baby and talk about your child in a nasty manner, you're not going to take it on board. But if I come to you in constructively and I say, look, I've seen this, you know, privately as well, not you know, downtrodden you and speaking down at you, privately, and say, you know what, maybe if you do this, I noticed this, maybe you should do that. Do you understand? In order to improve one another. Do you know what I mean?
Makes sense.
Don't write the person off. If it doesn't look good, if it's not right, point it out. Don't say, well, when black people do this, when black people do that. How many times do you go to Sainsbury's or go to certain big businesses or Primark that everybody runs to and you buy leggings and within a few days it's ripped, it's bad, it's no good again, but we still go back there because we've accepted it's Primark or whatever it is.
No, well, it's partly to do with their return policy. So,
but then
it encourages you, right?
Black businesses probably do have return policies as well if you check. Do you know what I mean? But it's just that we don't go and we don't exercise that right that we have. We just assume that, it's a black business, they may not do it.
Just what Anna-Rita was saying just triggered something. I just wanted to address it. What's actually interesting, and one thing that I guess the elephant in the room, is that some of these communities that patronize each other, it's very much woven into the cultural fabric of that community. So for Jewish people, it's religious. For Pakistani people, it's cultural and religious. For white communities, it's racial, because obviously Europeans or white people created race, so they've organized themselves on that principle. So probably one of the things to have a think about is that what is our connecting religion, you know? So I'm not talking about whether you're Christian, Muslim, etc., but all these other people have that advantage, right? Which is to say that Jewish people, and I know this from personal experience, a piece of chicken could be £3 at Tesco. If you want to buy kosher chicken, it's £12. They will buy the £12 chicken, Jewish people. And I know with some of the Chinese people I interact with, a cheaper product in Tesco or Sainsbury's, they would rather buy the more expensive Chinese version of the product. So I know sometimes we're thinking along economics and saying, well, people will always go for the cheapest possible product. That's not always true if the organizing principle, their cultural or religious sort of system dictates that they only buy from themselves. So we can't win the argument only on economics, is the point I'm making. Okay. There is an elephant in the room, which is religion.
That's a great point. And actually, just to buttress off of that, what is the Black community? I mean, it seems like, I think it was Rosaline was making a point earlier on about the Black community, and that was a question I had. What is the Black community? It seems like we've now been split even down along religious lines. So where the communities, we no longer have like, you know, as much community events or community organization groups, but we rather go, you know, to churches and to the mosques and what have you. And that's kind of where we've kind of found or formed a community base.
No, that's quite difficult because if you read Kwame Nkrumah's book, and one of the things I really liked about his book and his sort of narrative is that he very much tied his experience and his struggle and his worldview to a lot of what, you know, Marcus Garvey, what he picked up from Marcus Garvey. So he didn't see himself as just being, I guess, restricted to Ghana, but it was more the global Black experience. So I think Pan-Africanism can be an organizing principle. And so I think, you know, it's important that, I guess, we agree on the organizing principle, but then we need to organize around a principle. So it's good to have individual initiatives. Right. Yes, I like the Black Pound Day. It should be a Black Pound weekend and then a Black Pound every day, just gradually get in there. But I think we need an organizing principle, because if you want to look at where a lot of these different communities have an advantage, not that they have all the advantages over us, but have an advantage, is that they have an organizing principle that dictates their behavior. For example, the option of what school my child goes to, if you're Muslim or Jewish person, then you would rather go to a rubbish school and get private tuition for your child than send your child to a good school. So if you look at a lot of the UK, you know, a lot of the very good schools, you're not going to find many Jewish people in those schools. They'd rather go to a school that may be not as good, but they can control what's taught. But yet, when you come to excellent positions in business, you find Jewish people are overrepresented there. And so that tends to be because they might send their kids to a rubbish school because it's among the Jewish community, but then they would get private tuition to make sure that their kid is basically at a higher level. There needs to be an organizing principle.
Thanks, Jermaine.
I almost feel like us labeling it Black on Black crime, it's us committing crime ourselves, against ourselves. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. And so I actually appreciated that we moved on from that quite swiftly and started talking about how we can make our community better. And I'm not saying that because I think we should never talk about the crime and everything that goes on in our community, but actually by speaking about other things we've spoken about, it's part of the grassroots as to why there is poverty and why there is crime. Do you understand? So I think it's quite positive to see how the conversation has gone from talking about that and moving on to how we can actually progress and do stuff. Because a lot of crime is about, it is back down to poverty and secondly, the greed as far as the corporate crimes and stuff are concerned. So I just wanted to just touch back on that.
Yeah, and then let me just say this. Perhaps I owe everyone an apology because it was perhaps just it was more of a headline grabber. So I put down all of these things. I listed them as issues that people keep talking to me. I get a lot of sidebars. People talking about what about blacks killing blacks and all of these things. Black on black crime is not a term I agree with. It's a term I think is a narrative that's been pushed out there, and we have accepted it even as a people. And we have to break it down. We have to destroy this term because it doesn't help us. It doesn't help pushing, our community forward. But saying that, we do have issues within our community to tackle and to deal with. I think there are platforms and there are many groups that are dealing with these things. There are people that, they're dedicated. They're going to these communities. They're constantly talking. They're constantly trying to create truces and amnesty between gangs. They're working with young black kids. There's so many different organizations that are focused on these issues. So when I put it out there, it's kind of, to stir emotions and to stir discussion. So, and then, I totally agree with the terms and with what you've said, in order to educate everybody on this call as well, Gloria, and saying it's just crime. Let's label it as crime and let's look at it as crime and tackle it as crime as a whole. So thanks for that. I'm going to go to Fimber next because time is running out.
I've been listening to everything, right? I was in Ghana one time, and I met this American lady. She just moved to Ghana doing her own thing. She's been in Ghana for maybe about 3-4 years. Everything is great, you know what I mean? At the beginning, things will be a little tough, but as time goes on, you know what I mean? She's stable now, and she said something to me that kind of, it hit me, you know what I mean? She was like, yo, being here, I'm part of the majority. I don't get looked at like, oh, that's a black lady. I'm part of the majority. So me, I'm thinking the best thing for the blacks outside Africa, because Africa belongs to all black skin, right? So the best, because if you go to America, like Jermaine said, the white people, they still see themselves as Europeans. The Jews, the ones that was born in America, still see themselves as, we still have home in Israel. Even the Japanese that they're born in America, they still see themselves as, look, we still have, a home to go. So what about, you know what I'm saying, how do the black people thinking, Africa is our home. Let's start thinking about real good in the place and, claiming it, because we have Europeans there, Chinese people down there, you got like funny people down there taking our resources. What about us going back home and rebuild it and claiming our own?
All righty. Thank you all for jumping on the call. Like I said, I was going to wrap it up, and it's now 1:30 over here. Thank you all. I really appreciate you all. As always, I'm going to put this out on YouTube. So if you haven't if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do so. Search for Charly Buxx on YouTube. I also have, I've created a podcast, so you can also listen to it on podcast while you're driving or whatever. So you just have the audio playing, and that's also on all your favorite podcast channels, Spotify, whatever, and what have you, Apple and Google, whatever. So just search for Charly Buxx. I think on podcast it's Powerful Voices with Charly Buxx, because somebody said Chit Chat was too corny, so we've renamed it Powerful Voices, because you guys have powerful voices, and I really thank you all. I always learn a lot on these calls, and I appreciate everyone once again.